We got a good episode today from a guy I've chatted with in person, Matt Slaps. Met him at some art shows, and I wish we could have recorded the conversations that we had in person, but that's why we got him on the show, and I think that the listeners will enjoy this as well. This was probably one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, he's an artist. He's an amazing artist. You guys should definitely check out his Instagram, Matt Slap. Just search Matt Slap. I mean, some crazy, cool, trippy conspiracy. How would you describe his art, dude?
I would say
Like psychedelic
conspiracy
meets
or
conspiracy.
yeah, occulted, symbolic clothing line and art. And like he said, he wants his art to kind of wake people up, and now we gave him the ability to do that with his words.
Yeah, this one was fun. I liked it because you guys are super knowledgeable in this lane. Not that it doesn't interest me, it absolutely does. I just have spent my time, looking at other areas. So I was enjoying the ride, man, and a lot of things he said clicked with me, obviously, as you mentioned too during the podcast. Yeah, this was fun, bro.
Enjoy the episode. We have a guest who I've had some interesting conversations in person with, Matt Sheck. He's a creator. He owns the brand and company Slap Ass Creations. He's an artist. I met him at an art show, and we had some conversations that definitely opened my eyes to some things and caused me to go down some extreme deep dive routes. So this is an episode I'm looking forward to. How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Excellent.
Good.
Nice.
This is going to be quite the deep dive. So
Check
we
me.
can start off in where you kind of specialize: the occult, magic, secret societies, symbolism.
Hold on.
When
Hold on. I want to know who Matt is.
Well, I'm an artist, and I've always, liked making people react. I've always liked making people go inwards. I've always liked making people think. That's been like a big motto of my company, is making people wonder since 2005. So I've always tried to, just cause a reaction, change people's atmospheres. But yeah, I just love creating. I do all sorts of kind of art. I do, you name it, like acrylic, color pencil, sculpt, digital, anything that I can create with my hands from the ideas of my head,
Good shit. No, I didn't mean to cut you off, Tom. I'm sorry. People are listening. They might not know who Matt Slap is. I know I didn't know who Matt Slap is. Now I do. I have a better understanding of who we're talking to. Right, brother?
I was going to say, I have a shirt that I bought from you at one of your shows, and it was the vaccine one with the reptilian, and every time I've worn that, I've gotten some hilarious stares. So secondhand influence in people's consciousness with that shirt.
Yeah, that 2020, had a funny way of waking people up, and I had a good year before, like 2019 is when I started opening my eyes to a lot of things. A lot of things changed within myself, and then I just started going deep diving into all sorts of things that, like, I already knew. I knew about them, and I never, like, anytime anything conspiracy came up, I never shut it down. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, that's just a conspiracy. And I'm like, well, hey, it can happen. Why not? I just was always open to the supernatural stuff. I was always drawn to horror movies, heavy metal, skateboarding, and all of those things had a way of delving into the supernatural realm. And I always loved monsters. I've always loved all that kind of stuff because I just think it's a good way of opening people's eyes allegorically, can teach people a lot about themselves and other people. And I always loved horror movies because it was like one of those things that, like, my favorite horror movies are like the classics that were, the unexplained forces that just kept coming, evil that just kept coming, and no one knew why, and they couldn't explain it. And then there was always that one person, that one friend that always seemed to know what the heck was going on with shit, and everybody thought that he was crazy, but then he was the one that like came in and saved the day and was just like, I told you.
You're definitely talking to the two guys who share the same interests, that's for sure. Which the skateboarding, the horror movies, the metal, that's it's definitely me and Mike's cup of tea. And I was gonna say, like you said, it was things that you kind of already knew about, but you didn't truly deep dive it till like recently. And same here, like I've consumed like literally anything and everything conspiracy related over the years. But I remember the first time we talked, and something that always comes up is you find out that these cults and like the global elite and stuff, they're obsessed with Saturn and symbolisms of Saturn. And I didn't really have a deep understanding of that. And we had a conversation and you were kind of elaborating on it. So I think that would be a good place to start. What is it with the global elite and Saturn, or what is how would you sum it up to people who aren't familiar with that concept, if that even sounds crazy to say itself?
You know, Saturn is the Lord of the Rings. You know, it is the there's so many different avenues you can go down with, and everybody has their own take with Saturn. And it's the planet that rules. You know, it's the judgment. It's the planet that how would you say it? It's, you know, if you don't deal with your shit, you know, it's gonna judge you. You know, and you know, from what I've come to understand, that these things are all just, you know, they have an effect on our consciousness, the planets and where they were when you were born, and you know, you start getting into astrology and stuff. But all these elites are super obsessed with Saturn, Satan, you know, and it's simply the opposer, right? It's the that state of consciousness within yourself, you know, that the Hebrews would like to call shaitan. You know, and it simply means the opposer. It's when you start going against the truth, and you're causing that friction within yourself between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. And when you are doing dark shit, and when you're doing that stuff, you're going against the truth. That's that which is likened to God. Anytime you go against the truth is what leads to suffering. So, right. You know, there's so many things when it comes down to conspiracies with Saturn, and I wouldn't say I'm an expert with it. All I know is that they that they all worship it. You know, they all have that because it's a giant planet that rules us, you know.
Right. I was going to say it's clear that the people in control are inversionists, so they love to go against the natural order of things. So it makes sense that would be, you know, like the talisman, or whatever you want to call it, the body that they choose to identify with. And like the black cube symbolism, and the planet Saturn itself has that hexagon, like perfectly shaped hexagon on its North Pole. I don't know if you knew that, Mike, or if some of the listeners knew that there's a perfectly shaped black hexagon. They say it's a storm on the North Pole of Saturn.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Like a 3D cube, and that's like it's related to the hexagram star, like what you would call the Star of David or the Star of Remphan. And you see that symbol all over like Freemasonry, and even like our dollar bill, and just all types of stuff. So the black cube, the 6-pointed star, the eye. Some people think like Sauron from Lord of the Rings. Again, like Matt said, Lord of the Rings. That Saturn is basically just like a big cosmic eye, like watching us.
Yeah, and what they do too is with that, you know, it's if you look at the Star of David, or the blazing star is what they would call that. It is Saturn. If you look at it, it is like the hexagram is in the middle, and around it is you got all the points, which makes Saturn. If you look at it, and that hexagram makes a cube, right? And the way that these global elites, these Satanists, these dark Luciferians, you name it, they're pissed at God because they can't do whatever they want here. So they look at this place as a big imprisonment of matter. Like you're imprisoned into this matter, and you can't do whatever you want because natural law governs it. So it's like you got the seven principles of natural law and what governs our soul here, and that's the most occulted stuff. That's the most occulted thing is what binds our soul, what governs our soul here, you know. And these people, they think that they can get away with doing whatever, or I don't say they can get away with doing with whatever they want, but since they can't do whatever they want, they look at this place as a prison, and they're gonna rule over it like a gang in a prison. So they know how to bend natural law, and they got all the police, the military, all this stuff that we're policing ourselves. And you got all these people whispering just in their ear, like, hey, go do this. And that gets them out of their karmic brunt because other people are actually carrying out the orders in which they are saying, you know, because they're bribing them, they're doing it, and it's all about power and it's all about control at the end of the day because they're the ones that made up money.
Oh yeah, and it really is such an all-encompassing, like people typically will describe the conspiracy world or Illuminati, for lack of a better term, as like a pyramid. Like the very top is like the few who know, and they influence everyone from the top down, and the inferiors don't even really know like what they're doing. They're just carrying out the orders of the higher ups. And the prison thing that you said, that's a really good analogy, because yeah, they are trying to rebel against God in their own way by doing the most abhorrent things possible. Like we know about the human sacrifice from way back when, it never really stopped. Like there's plenty of conspiracies leading to that, child sacrifice, stuff like that. I don't know if people know that Saturn, the Roman god, literally, like as he was worshipped in Rome, was his story. He ate his own children so that they couldn't take his throne, and he was the god of like time and discipline and just, yeah, you know, like keeping everything under control. Yeah, I mean, it gets dark, but when you really look at the bigger picture, you can tell that there is a very evil cult. I wouldn't even say behind the scenes, because the symbolism and everything, you don't have to do a ton of homework. I know all of us here have been, you know, researching this type of thing for a long time, but it doesn't take a lot to realize something very sinister is kind of pulling the strings.
Yeah, that's absolutely sure. You know, that's for sure. I mean, once you wake up to it, you start learning and just learning their symbolism, you know, because yeah, our subconscious mind, it speaks in symbols. It doesn't speak in language. It doesn't know anything, and it's what we believe, right? That we manifest in this world. I mean, just look at our culture. Like everybody is divided. It's like a big schism in the brain, right? And it's a big schism in the world. So it's like these people want to keep people divided from within themselves, within their family, within society. And if you can do that and you can make people believe the lie, they're just going to keep on suffering and suffering until they come to find the truth from their suffering. You know what I mean? And it's all comes down to morality, you know, being a good person, you know, all these secret societies and all that stuff. It all comes down to magic. At the end of the day, we're all magicians, right? We all create this reality individually and collectively. And the reason that we're in the mess that we're in is because we're letting it happen. We're consenting to it. And nobody knows any different because, you know, they're incrementalists, these people. They just do it over time, but we're witnessing them speed this shit up like crazy within the last 3 years. It's just like boom, 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 boom. People are like, shit's happening. Society's being demoralized. I mean, just look at all this. We got during the lockdown, you got all these chicks doing OnlyFans, and you got all these people. I want to be a boy when I'm a girl, and I want to be a girl when I'm a boy. And, you know, they're going against these fundamental laws of nature. And when you look at all these people, and there's so much suffering going on, and people are like, oh, I just got depression, and I've got anxiety, and I got all of this, and they just, what do? They take drugs. They take all this other stuff because It runs in my family. It's genetic. Well, you got to break that curse. And we're coming into a time where people are going to start owning their shit and sifting through all that generational trauma and just start owning their stuff, healing themselves, their family, all this kind of stuff. Like, it's been talked about. I've been reading a ton of stuff just from like the 1920s and earlier, where they talk about this Aquarian age that we just are now in. And we're witnessing people lose their fucking minds because and this chick was talking about it in her book, Magician Dion Fortune. She was talking about, you know, there's going to come a time when we get into this Aquarian age where people are going to check themselves into mental facilities because they're losing their shit, because they're going against that which is. You know, the return of the Knights of the Round Table, the return of Christ, the return of, you know, states. These are all just like states of consciousness within all of us that, like, pretty much we all just need to become moral people and start doing the right thing and fuck around and find out. You know, it's like you got people that want to control everybody, and people are just letting it happen. And in the aggregate, we're all consenting to all of this.
Mike, I feel like he said some stuff that's right up your alley there. What do you make of that?
I took a couple notes because first off, man, you said incrementally, and I think that's crazy because I always try to tell people too. That's what they do. They don't go after your freedoms. They don't go after everything all at once. What they do is they nudge you off the center ever so slightly for, like you said, for a long period of time, until before you know it, you're so fucking far off center. You're like, how did we get here? And then we're trying, like, we fucking told you, we were crazy, but are we crazy now? And then the other thing that you said was about how people should own their shit. And I'm a firm believer. I don't believe addiction is a disease. I believe you got to own it. Like exactly what you said, man. It's like, okay, maybe I was born into a bad situation and this happened and that happened. Whatever the fuck, dude. It's got to stop somewhere. Might as well be me now, right? You said a lot of good shit there, dude. I don't have much to add in the way of like the occult, and you guys are so far beyond me dude, I love it all. You know me. I go hard into paint in a lot of different areas, and this is something that I'm super fucking fascinated by, but I definitely bow to you guys when it comes to this and knowledge. So I'm learning a fucking lot today. This is cool.
And I'll tell you too, I took some notes from your guys' podcast, and I really like that you brought that brought that up about addiction, because I've grown up, I've been around drugs my whole life. My whole life, I've had friends. I've always been put in these situations where I'm able to hang out with my friends that are heroin addicts, people that are doing crack and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know, and it always comes down to where I'm like, hey guys, I can only help you so much. And there's going to come a time where I can't help you at all, you know, because no one's going to be able to pull you out of this but yourself. Because it's until you get out of that victimhood and that frame of mind, you're never going to heal and you're never going to be well. And so when you said that you don't believe addiction is a disease, I 100% believe you, because there comes a lot of like spiritual bypassing with that kind of shit. And I can't stand AA when they tell you you've got a disease and you're always going to have a disease. I'm like, well, that is a program that you're going to be telling yourself for the rest of your fucking life, and you're never going to become well because you're not changing your stream of thought. Mm-hmm. And that way you're never going to break the curse. You're never going to break the cycle. And it's all this in the box that you keep yourself in, you know, and it comes back to that cube, you know, and people have been under such an enchantment and such a big spell. We witnessed the biggest spell cast in 2020 over the whole world, and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it was happening. I'm like, I'm sitting around when they made this announcement that we're having a lockdown and this is a pandemic and all this stuff. And I remember I was at work and I watched everybody at my work freaked the fuck out. Like the front lady, the lady in front, she's making a new message. We're closed for the indefinite future, for the foreseeable future. And I'm like, whoa, you guys, this is magic. What they're doing is they're making you react, because within all magic, right? They talk about within my studies of this is that it is all about your state of mind. And are you reacting to your environment, or are you making your environment react to you? Because if you can make your environment react to you, you are in control and you are the king of yourself. And I watched this and I'm like, holy shit, people are just freaking the fuck out and believing this stuff because people want to be led. And they think that this world is something than what they think. And it's totally not what we think it is. And we're totally way more powerful than what we have been led to believe, and who we are and what's going on here. You guys were talking about AI and whatnot. So like, look at the internet. Well, what is powering AI? Well, I liken the internet to like consciousness to our body. The internet is the home like of consciousness of AI. And now like people don't have a grasp on where that can go and what that can do. I've been around people my whole life that had some kind of trauma which led to addiction, and what I've learned too about people with addiction is those people are usually so connected and so psychic that they feel like they're the black sheep of the family, because they can see and go in and grab into these different realms and be able to see these things for what they are. But people are so enchanted to think that our reality, like fantasy, is just it's just a thing in the movies. But like they're taking the reality and selling it to you as fantasy, so you don't take action at all.
I think when you say the word magic, a lot of people immediately go like, think that that's woo woo, or they're like, oh, this guy's crazy. What is he talking about? Magic's not real. Like, but I mean, it's very clear that these like groups, these secret societies, these people, they're highly advanced and they believe in it, and they, you know, put a lot of power and energy into it. And if you could kind of elaborate on what magic is, because I would think like my thoughts on it is kind of like even what you do with your art. Like you come up with an idea in your head and you make it and you turn it into reality. That's kind of magic. You have an idea for something, you bring it into, you know, the physical realm, or like even us making this podcast. So you could argue that that's a form of magic, influencing your, you know, your reality. So be it.
100%. Anything that we do within this world requires, it all starts in the mind first. Everything starts in mind. So you go outside, you look at everything, the infrastructures, the buildings, the cars, everything comes from mind, right? We live in a mental universe, and that's the first like cosmic law is mentalism. Everything is mind, and it has to start in mind first before it can be created. So you're pulling down from this infinite source, the ethers, all of it, and you're able to create and show people through allegory, through creation itself, because we're the little g of the big G, right? That's the beauty of it. Like Aleister Crowley's definition of magic is the art and science of affecting change with the will. And in my study of magic is it all comes down to what do you want, and you have to be very specific, because this place gives you exactly what you want, but you have to be very specific, and you can't just let the world decide for you, because then you're just never going to go anywhere. You're just going to be a victim of circumstance, or you're just this passive person. But like if you get very specific in what you want to do, it requires focus, and it requires honed in attention. It's like a laser beam. When you become a focused person and a driven person, and you're a wrestler, and you know exactly what it takes, because it involves focus, determination, and perseverance to get to, like, how bad do you want it? Do you want it? Are you going to get it? Are you going to go out there and make make the best of the time that you have here? Or are you just going to go around and let everybody else tell you what to do? And that's what all magic is it's a study of consciousness, because I've always been drawn to that. And then as I started learning about it, it's psychology, but on such a deeper level. And then you start practicing this stuff and you start getting into breathing techniques and meditation and, you know, and all these rituals like ceremonial magic and all these different fraternities and secret societies do. It's all about, these rituals are for you to help you focus and put in without any bullshit chatter, talk to you, right? Because your mind, right, is not all your thoughts are yours. And how we work here is like, I can go around, like, who are you surrounding yourself with? You know, you can be hanging around with a bunch of people and all of a sudden you get like this intrusive thought that's super negative and you're like, well, where did that fucking come from? I guarantee you, all of us, if anybody thinks about it, it's like, well, yeah, I've had thoughts like that. Like, where the fuck did that come from? Well, our auric field, our energy, we got like a big torsion field of energy, right? We got like this invisible egg around us, and like we're powering this matter. And that's crazy enough, because when I start talking to people, especially atheists or anybody that doesn't believe that there's a higher power, I always go, well, that's cool, but like, well, just answer me this. It's like, when you die here and your soul leaves this body, your body operates on totally different sets of laws and becomes one with the earth again. That alone, just that thought is enough to like blow your mind of being like, holy shit, like, that's right. Like, we generate heat off of our body, you know, we generate all this stuff, and it's just crazy. We're so much more powerful, and we're all creators. That's the one thing that's special about all of us. All of us are creators. All of us are artists. All of us are magicians, because we literally create the world in which we see fit. And we're adaptable. We can change our mindset. We can become and do anything, but it requires a change of mindset to do it. Like, you want to be a lawyer? Okay, well, what do you got to do? Well, apply change and learn to be a lawyer. You want to be a wrestler? Well, what do you got to do? Well, you got to go set your mind to be a wrestler. You want to be an artist? You want to do that? People tell me, I wish I could do what you do. I'm like, well, just do it. Just fucking do it. You're thinking way too much about this. Do it. Go align yourself. We're radios, right? We are literally radios, to where, what station are you tuning into to do what it is that we do? What is it? What are you listening to? What is that chatter in your head? Is it your chatter? Is it your own thoughts? You know, and that goes into different technologies and what's going on in the world. You know, we got all these 5G towers everywhere. We've got our skies are weaponized against us, and most people don't even know how fucking Wi-Fi works or how any of these devices work. Just think it just happens, but like, there's information around us, and it's all in radiation in the unseen realm.
I think it's fairly obvious that the power of the mind is what they're after too, when it comes to just direct propaganda, like, or them telling you what you can or can't say or think and what's allowed, you know, like almost like 1984 thought crime. And then down to like the symbolism that they constantly blast us with, and like you said, tuning into the right frequency. So yeah, you could think that the towers or the Wi-Fi or maybe HARP or whatever, like people like to say, you know, good vibes, bad vibes, like quite literally trying to keep us in low vibes or influence us with literal frequencies, like blasting us with Wi-Fi and all this stuff, your cell phone being right near your nuts in your pocket, or being right up to your head on your brain. That's an obvious, you know, manipulation of us. But then when it comes to the magic too, something I deep dive a lot and I'm passionate about is the Celtic Druids. And they were obviously had like a lot of legends of magic and the stories of what they were doing, and it's all super mystical and mysterious. And the suppression of their history I have connected a lot to secret societies, basically, every time that they would conquer, like the ruling class would conquer, like a people or a nation or a tribe, they would wipe out their, like sacred knowledge, if you will, to the public, but then incorporate it into their own schools and try to convince everyone else, like, no, that's not real. That was just fake. And then meanwhile, they're trying to use it against us and like make us seem much less powerful. And to go back to that, like Hollywood itself, I'm sure you guys have come across the video. I think it was Jordan Maxwell or something explaining how Hollywood quite literally is magic, because the Hollywood tree was what the Druids used to, make wands out of, to do their spells and their incantations with their rituals. And the idea of broadcasting movies or shows or stuff to people, that they're casting a broad spell across, to everybody who's witnessing it. And if mind and attention and intention is really like the starting point for everything, if they could control what you're thinking or implant things into your head through movies, through symbols, through subliminal messages or frequencies that we can't really hear in the music. Like everyone talks about how the music industry is like one of the focal points for people when they're like, oh, the Illuminati, look, like they're doing this, Jay-Z, Lady Gaga. And it seems funny and absurd and silly when you're pointing out like that, obviously, but it really is. Like, who would be some of the main agents to brainwash people other than, these people that literally become idols that people quote unquote worship, and are constantly hitting us with subliminal messages in their videos and their songs. And it's so deep, and we're clearly dealing with a high up magician. What I always try to say is, it doesn't matter if you believe it or you think it's real. The people who are in control and influencing us, they believe it is very real, and their actions are going to reflect their belief in that.
Yeah, and who are they always using to influence the masses? Who are they always exploiting? It's the artists. It's always the artists, because I was watching a series. It's called Magical Egypt, and they're coming out with their 4th season, and it's absolutely mind blowing. If you want to know about Egypt and you want to know where magic has come from and all of that stuff, I suggest anybody watch that, because they had this one magician on there on season 2, and it was like at the end of one of the episodes, he says the artist is the prophet in all cultures and all everything, because they're the ones that can reach up from these different realms and pull stuff down and show people through their talent, through what they've honed through them, and to communicate these deeply spiritual ideas just through their own allegory. And I mean, look at everything. I mean, you look at anything from sports to artists to musicians to actors and movies, and and movies and music are like some of the highest forms of magic, because especially if you go to a live show, because it's all ceremonial magic. They're creating an atmosphere, and they're holding your attention, and then when you get a group of people holding an attention, all of a sudden it was just like you're having a spiritual experience, because everybody is being moved through this frequency, and people don't even liken that. Anybody that goes to church, right? That's ceremonial magic. I get into conversations with Christians when I hear Christians be like, oh, magic, that's all evil and crystals and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, listen, that's just your form of magic. I'm like, and we all have our different forms of magic, right? Like, people think that you have to like stick within these certain guidelines and these certain things, but like, it's what we do with our mind and what we want to do with this reality field that which we can carve out and do. I think Pablo Picasso, I think, said this. He's like, learn all the rules so you can break them like an artist. And that right there is the most powerful thing, because I look at all this magic stuff and I'm learning all these different systems of magic, and none of them none of them have like caught me, but they've all helped me develop my form of magic and what I'm doing with my life. And it's all honed attention. And what do you want to do? Because it always comes down to like, what kind of world are we going to create? And are you going to help the upliftment of humanity, or are you going to, which would be a magician, or are you going to be a sorcerer and hold this knowledge to have an upper hand on the rest of your fellow men and make them do? And that's what we're witnessing now is this power differential, and people are coming privy to all of this knowledge, and people are starting to understand that there's more beyond religion, there's more beyond to this world and who we are. This place is, we're way older than what people have let, like, scientists say that we are. You know, it stops at like what Sumerian, the Babylonian, Sumerian stuff. I think it goes way farther than that. And I think all these religions are all the same story, just regurgitated in some other culture. I try not to bash anybody's religion, but I try to tell them to go deeper into the esoteric, deeper meanings of it, because there's so much more to us than just being like, well, I just live by this one book, and I think that this is the way to go. So, well, that's fine, but continue to keep learning, because if you think you got it all, you've been duped, because there can be one thing that you're into that you master, but then there's all these other realms and worlds that people make up and do that you have no idea about. But like, what is your purpose? What are you drawn to?
Do you think we live in a simulation?
I think we live, I wouldn't say so much of a simulation, but I think that consciousness has been enslaved, because you could just think about like, hey, we live here and we're creating our world, right? And we're doing all this stuff, but we're creating the world in which we want to do and all this stuff. And I've come across different things, you know, with like the moon being, it's keeping us here so they can be fed off of. I honestly think we live in a big farm. Like, I think we're being fed off of because we all feed off of other beings. So why wouldn't other beings being fed off of us? You know, like David Icke is a prime example of being like, oh yeah, we got reptilians on just outside of our frequency zone, just feeding off of our loosh, you know. And all the religions and all the different teachings talk about these deities, whether they're reptilian or whatever, chimeras, or I've seen enough weird shit in my life to be like, yeah, I could see that, you know.
I love how it seems to all come back to ideas. When you were talking about it a little earlier, it got me thinking. I used to study philosophy a lot, and Plato has something that's called a divided line. And essentially what that is he broke the line down into what is the most real to him or to people. And it essentially goes from the least real is like images, then it goes to like your beliefs, and then ultimately ideas are the highest form of intelligence, and that leads you to truth and clarity. So I just thought that was so interesting because, you know, Plato obviously is one of the greatest minds to ever live, and he came to that same conclusion that it's all about ideas. And I love how you almost got like a quasi determinism point of view when it comes to just get it done. I agree with a lot of that, dude. Very cool stuff.
You know, it's not just all this wishful, like, people wish a lot and think that things are just going to happen for them, but like, it takes action, right? And what's going on in society? You got TikTok, social media, all this stuff. You got all these distractions, and it's just making people short-minded and having short memory spans. And they're not doing anything because they're just waiting for the next video. They're scrolling. They're just, you know, why don't you take a look up sometime and look at the sky? Why don't you go deeper in things? But you know, you got these black screens everywhere. And I remember reading about John Dee, the magician, and his most prized possession was a flat, polished obsidian stone, which is a black screen. And what is in everybody's pockets? You know, what is being, we got sorcery everywhere. It's people will go like, I read this and I saw this and I got all this from these screens. And I always come back to, well, who do you think makes these screens? Because the same people that make the technology, they own the media, they own all the information that you're getting on this stuff. They're starting to crack down on stuff. And if you don't take in multiple vast variety of eclectic view of different sources of information, you're never going to come to the truth, because you got all these little nuggets wrapped in poison everywhere. But you got to have an open mind. And Jordan Maxwell said the most. He was saying, you know, your mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work unless it's open. And I love that line. I use it all the time. I quote Jordan Maxwell all the time. When I went into art school, like my first week there, I got put in my place because I thought I knew. I didn't want to be questioned, and I didn't want to understand a lot of things because I just got things. I didn't understand the why. And what I've come to learn is that the why is where the power lies. Because if you can do something but not know why, you don't got any power. You can't have any understanding. It's just your foundation is shit. But if you can know why this all works and you know how you work, then you're going to start finding yourself closer to that truth and the understanding of these unseen realms and the things that, like, oh, well, this is just a coincidence. And it's like, well, no, that's just a law that's going unnoticed.
To go back to the technology that you brought up, Mike and I were just talking the other day. I honestly can't remember if it was on an episode that hasn't come out yet, or we were just, you know, bullshitting with each other about how the Apple logo is the bitten apple from, basically represented the Garden of Eden and the forbidden knowledge from the serpent. And so many, especially tech corporations, their symbols, their logos are occult symbols for sure. Like a lot of logos are back to the Saturn, like they're either a hexagon or they're a circle with like a ring going through it. People say the Nike logo is representing like Saturn's ring kind of going around. Like if you look, or you can Google that, a lot of corporate logos are just occult sigils. And something that creeps me out that I like to bring up a lot, although most people think it's a big stretch, is if you look at like circuit boards or microchips and stuff like that, they look like, if you look at like an occult book like Solomon's Seal, or like the book where Solomon had all these, you know, symbols to summon demons, and like if you look at weird grimoires of ancient magic, and every deity or demon has like a crazy little sigil symbol to associate with that being or that deity, and it's just like a bunch of circles and lines, and it looks awfully similar to how like a microchip or something would look. And I don't think that's any coincidence. Like we have the little scrying mirror in our pocket, the phone with AI and internet, and the ability to just like get any information at hand. It's like a genie's bottle or something like that. And when you look at cities too, cities they kind of look like a circuit board, or like if you get like the aerial view of all the buildings popping out, it looks like a chip that could be like harnessed in our energy or something. It's crazy, man.
Well, yeah, and you look at all of this, right? And I'm coming back to what I was talking about, how we create the reality field that we live in. And there's a reason why, you know, you look at all these phones, and there's a reason they're collecting your data, and there's a reason that they're trying to sell you on stuff, and they're just feeding you stuff that you like, because they want to make money off of you and enslave you, and then they also want us to generate the world that they want. It's not the world that we want, it's the world that they want, because they've kept people so divided from themselves with all these SSRI drugs, and keeping people sedated and deadened and made into these hard like shells, soulless bodies. And because they don't want to deal with their shit, because they don't want to look at their shadow, they don't want to look at the bad things that they did. But like what people don't understand is you don't have the right to look at something, a part of you, and deny it, because then you're really going to suffer, because you're like, oh, I can't accept myself. I can't accept those things, and I don't want to do that. And that really sucks, because then they're just searching, and like, you know, they become addicts in one way or the other, or they are just into these drones, and people are being spoon fed what they want to be going on. You look at all these think tank organizations, and it's like, you look at the Fabian Society, right? The Fabian Society is this like big left-leaning think tank organization, and their logo is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And they talk up and they state it on their website that, listen, we do things gradually over time, because if you can do it gradually over time, it's like you fucked up like 2 or 3 generations, and they think that, well, this is just the way the world is, and now we're living in this shitty hell, and people don't understand where and why that they are so depressed, and they can't feel, and they're so detached from nature or the reality in which we live in. You know, and I don't mean just like nature with the trees. I'm talking about the reality in which we live in. And your perception isn't reality. There is an objective reality to this place. And that's where people are being really held back. And it all comes down to being a moral person and making right choices and being correct, not being wrong, like not taking wrong action, and be, you know, all the religions talk about it, you know, and that's what Jesus was saying in his thing, like, you can be like me if you walk in my footsteps. He didn't say you need to worship me and you need to think that I am God. It's like all these things, and in simplistic terms, it just comes down to being a good person and not holding yourself back by wrong choices and accepting truth, you know, because you got a lot of movements out here where people are like, well, my truth. Well, I don't believe that. Well, just because you don't believe doesn't make it true. You know, like less true, like that's where you're going to suffer. And you look at all these people that are just triggered on stuff, and I want to be this and I want reality to be that way. I'm like, well, is it that way? Are you in line with it? Have you discovered truth, and have you aligned your perception to it? Or are you going to keep going against all these other things, and you're just going to keep you know, just being broke down? That's what these people want. They want to break people down to the most incremental little piece, and then they want to break that down even more. You know, like you look at all these SRA, the ritual satanic abuse people, you know, that's the whole MK Ultra, the trauma-based mind control. It's all about scarring people's brains and then compartmentalizing a part of yourself, a part of your consciousness, and then being able to trigger it, right? It's like hypnotism. You know, it's like that movie Get Out. That movie was like 100%. I just watched it the other night with my girlfriend, and I'm like, holy shit, they're just telling you all about the occult right here, and that shit happens.
When it comes to COVID too, I think like the whole psyop thing, it literally changed some people forever. Like it changed the way that they function, the way they see the world. It's like we were saying, they incrementally try to do these things, but over the past couple of years, they really ramped it up and tried to, you know, they almost overstepped it, because it did cause a lot of people to wake up. I think that it caused a lot of people to do the opposite, though. I don't know if it was maybe what was in the shots, or just they're afraid to face the reality. The darker it gets, the further they bury their head in the sand, because then they have to confront all these so-called conspiracies that they've, you know, ignored for so long. And even the most glaringly obvious, like, you know, alarming or suspicious things surrounding the whole pandemic, or just like narratives that don't add up, and everything else that came as a result of it. I think that some people went further away from waking up, but it's not all doom and gloom. Me and Mike have talked how we think that, like, obviously it woke a lot of people up, and right now there's probably more people than ever that are open to these types of things and you know, recognizing it, and it's pretty fun to speculate. And I'll ask both of you too. What do you think is going to be their next big ploy and plan to, you know, I don't know, cause hysteria or implement their next chaotic psyop or false flag type of event? I think that we're definitely going to get some aliens, some blue beam, some fake disclosure type of stuff. I was ready for that last year around this time when they were so-called shooting down UFOs and blasting that narrative. I was so excited. I was like, oh no, this is the day. Like, we real conspiracy theorists that have flipped the script and now think that, you know, UFOs are going to be the next, you know, fake psyop to try and get the public believing in that. But I'll ask you first, Mike, and then you, Matt. What do you think is going to be the very next play in the, I guess, for lack of a better term, elites playbook?
I think it depends on how this year's presidential campaign race plays out. I really do. I think it could either be another, you know, we're seeing this disease X, you know, that's kind of like an encompassing term they're using for the next big coronavirus. So I think it could be that. But what I really lean towards is there's going to be some kind of invasion. They've let so many military-aged men through the borders these last few months that they've essentially conquered our country without raising a finger. And I think we're going to start to see that play out, sadly.
I would agree with you on that completely. You know, I think, you know, this whole disclosure community is it's like a big distraction, right? Like, they're telling you what they're doing while having an invasion. It's like a double speak, right? Like, oh, there's going to be these aliens coming in. Well, there are aliens here coming in over the border, like, and they're just waiting. They're just sleeper cells. They're just what we're going to see. Some crazy chaos with people, like, because, you know, people think that they saw some chaos with the riots in 2020 and all that stuff. They haven't seen shit yet, like. And people are gonna be like, "Oh my gosh!" And then they're gonna really scare the shit out of people because, like, look at this. My bullshit meter has been going off like crazy the last couple of years of all the different psyops between aliens and all of this stuff. But, like, I'm like blown away that people aren't outraged of what happened. Everybody was duped. Everybody, like, it just went back to normal. It just, like, this killer virus happened. And then it just went back to normal. But meanwhile, they've been bringing people in here, trafficking people left and right, trafficking people into the country, and it's all going to be to stir up chaos, and it's all chaos magic, right? Like, look at they're pulling people's attention every which way than to themselves. And that's the scary part of it is if you knew yourself, if you got to know who you are and how you work, how your mind works, how to focus, then you're lifting that veil and then you're able to see this shit because now you're raising your frequency to that truth, right? I can see him pulling some shit because they can literally make our whole sky a hologram. All the patents are out there. All the sky seeding that they've been doing, all the heavy metals that are in our sky, they're trying to block out the sun. I mean, it's straight out of the Matrix. That's what they did in the Matrix. Is they blotted out the sun. They blotted out the sky with a black sky.
I can probably speak for all of us and many people listening who kind of have, you know, the anti-authoritarian and revolutionary rebel spirit that, like, a revolution would be needed, but it's like, I feel like during, you know, 2020 and everything that was happening, whether it was, you know, like the racially motivated riots, the lockdowns, everything else that was going on, it was like they were intentionally trying to provoke people to revolt and thinking that we would be, you know, so outraged by everything that was going on and then infringing on our rights that we would step up and revolt. And they're just like, come on, when are they going to do it? Aren't they going to, like, be pissed at us stepping on their rights? Or come on, just, you know, it's like they want it to happen, but on their terms so that they can control it, that they can have it controlled off and then, you know, declare martial law and come to come and clean up the problem, like problem reaction solution. And they were probably surprised too that people didn't bite on it and they're just letting everything happen. But I don't know if you guys have seen Ireland, and I was just over there and shit popped off like a week after I left in Dublin, like in the places that I was staying too, that they were clashing with police and they were fighting over immigration stuff because Ireland's been getting flooded. Like, it's a very small country to begin with. So if you bring, I don't know, let's say a couple 100,000 people in, that would be like bringing multiple millions into America. And again, it's fighting aged males from like third world countries or countries where, you know, like rape, murder, shit like that is a lot more common. And then they're not bringing families like women and children and refugees to escape this. They're bringing in like males like our age that they know are going to come cause chaos. So then when the Irish people are trying to point that out or push back against it, they passed laws just recently about hate speech or, you know, offensive speech to where you can go to jail in Ireland now. I don't know if it's fully passed, but they're trying to. You can go to jail for having memes on your phone or posting something or even just sharing something like between you and your wife or your friends. Like, if you don't give them access to your phone or your social media password, say at like the airport, or if you get stopped or something, that if they have something, then there's not even like a, you know, a set jurisdiction on what is acceptable and what's not. It's anything they declare offensive or hate speech can get you thrown in jail, and that's just to curtail anyone who's trying to push back against what's happening. They could just literally label anything like, oh, you don't believe that we should be teaching children to cut their dicks off? Hate speech, 12 months in jail. Oh, you think it's good that a little girl got stabbed by a migrant who was living on welfare? You fucking bigot, jail. Like, that shit is ridiculous.
T-Mobile just passed something in their terms and conditions about if you can get fined if you post something on your social media, you send a text that they don't like, they'll fine you. You'll be billed for it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like we're living. Yeah.
Holy
yeah, look it up.
shit.
It's nuts. I saw that and I was like, holy shit! And I got T-Mobile. Like,
Dude, that's so
If you're
crazy.
listening to this podcast right now, Matt, you're gonna rack up a bill.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Just it being by me, right next to me, is racking up a bill between myself and my girlfriend. It's ridiculous.
Okay, I know I'm not crazy. So we know that they target fucking, you know, ads. Like, you'll be talking about something with someone or whatever, and then you get those ads later when you haven't even searched it or talked about it. But I swear, dude, even just thinking about something and then an ad shows up.
100%. It happened to me, and it's reading your mind. It's reading your eyes. It's reading your consciousness, and that's what I'm saying is, like, not all your thoughts are yours, and people can't distinguish between what is their thought, and you can become the observer of your thoughts while they're happening. As crazy as that sounds, I do it all the time where I'm like, why am I having all these thoughts? And then I find myself like just mulling shit over, or just, you know, constantly being stuck in some kind of funky vibe. And then I'm like, why am I don't like this. It's not my thought. I don't want it. And you try to change your mind, but then you like observe it and you're like, oh wait. And then you observe your surrounding and you're like, it's that person. Or it's, what are you looking at? You know, are you around 5G towers? Are you, you know, and I got crazy stories about, I've got a crazy story about interdimensional shit with 5G. And I feel like I felt the force of what powers it through the 5G tower. And it was like, it felt like cosmic Lovecraftian shit.
Holy shit, you're gonna have to elaborate on that.
All right.
For
so
sure.
I went to my drummer. I've been in a band on and off throughout my whole life. I'm a musician, a guitarist.
With your guitar. Tom plays the skin flute.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, dude.
Oh, we've all mastered that. So he had our practice spot was in Park Ridge, and the back there was a 5G tower like literally right behind the building that we're in, and I go there and I was with my one buddy Coop, and we get there before he got to the spot, and we were kind of jamming, and I'm like, hey man, I've got some of this concentrated mushrooms, like psilocybin. I'm like, you want to take some? Like, let's just not take a lot, let's just take a little bit. And he's like, okay. So we take some, and it's weird. Like, psilocybin for me is like one of the, I never take a crazy amount. I always take just a little bit. But my buddy, he's like 6'3", he's a big guy. I gave him the same amount that I took, and I was just like having a body buzz and feeling good. And my buddy starts tripping out, and then my drummer comes in, and he was in like a funky mood. He had like some low vibrational energy, and he came in and he was pissed off about something. And my buddy he's like, I'm gonna go outside and smoke. I can't even play my guitar right now. I'm like, all right. So I'm playing with my drummer, and all of a sudden I feel like the atmosphere in the whole room change. I felt something come in, and I felt like whatever came in through that tower, honed in through my buddy's low vibrational energy. And then I felt this thing like wrap around like my essence, like your light body, right? Like I feel it like coil around like a snake. And it like stopped right in my ear, and it wanted me to invite it in. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck is this? And we get done playing, and I'm like, I need to go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom, and I'm like, man, I just had this urge that I had to get out of there. And I'm like, man, I gotta get out of here. But am I too messed up? And then my internal voice was like, yeah, dude, you're too messed up. You need to stay here. But as that was being said, I observed it, and I'm like, that's not my voice. That's not me. And I caught it. And as it was saying, yeah, you're too messed up, I started getting visuals of like things starting to get wavy and like almost like tripping out. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't me, and you're fucking with me. Whatever you are, you're fucking with me. And I caught it. And then immediately my vision went back to straight. And then I like got out of the bathroom, and I beelined it outside to my buddy, and I started telling him what I felt. He's like, that same thing happened to me, and I'm ready to get the fuck out of here when you are. I'm like, all right, let's go now. And then once we decided that we were going to leave, it felt like the urgency to get out of there was like an atomic bomb was going to go off, and you needed to get out as fast as you can. Like, get in your car and fucking book it out of the city before this thing blows. That's how it felt. And as soon as I got onto 90, and the further away I got, it felt like a sticky, icky energy. You're like, oh, and you shook it off, and you're like, and you felt like you were violated. It was like a demonic feeling. Like anytime you hear anybody talk about being possessed or violated spiritually, is what that was. But it was weird though, because on my drive home, like we get back to my buddy's house, and his chick was there, and she was talking about stuff, and she was trying to tell me she's like, oh, it was this. I'm like, no, I want you to shut up, and I need you to listen to me, because when this thing wrapped around me and I found out what it was like, you needed to get the fuck out of there, because it is way more powerful than you. And whatever energy that you had at that time to hold it off was gone. You had to go, because something was going to happen. I'm like, and what I got from this thing was, it felt like it was the force that was behind AI, like this cosmic entity that has been here for a very long time. It always has been. And I feel like it cracked through our reality field. And I was like, holy shit. And they're putting these fucking towers everywhere. You know, because you start traveling, and you're like, holy shit. Like, they're fucking everywhere. And there's cell towers, right? Like, we all grew up with cell phones. We all grew up watching these towers be put up, but they weren't anything to what they are now. Since they passed 5G, these things, not only does the technology look alien and out of this world, but no one seems to be fucking questioning it. Like, there's a small group of people that are like, hey, this shit ain't fucking right. And I felt that force that they're channeling through those things. And it made total sense of like Lovecraftian dimensional beings. Like you have these ideas of demons and stuff, but like this was like at a totally different level of sci-fi, like a totally different level of evil, of like, you know, Star Trek and the Borg that wants you to merge with the machine. But like that force that powers that is what I felt. And I never felt anything like that ever.
That is nuts. So I've got two questions on that.
Yeah.
Do you have a new jam spot as a result of that? And did you get like a visual in your head of what you thought that this might have looked like?
I didn't get a visual of it. I got the sense of like snake like, because it coiled around me like a serpent, but it wasn't like a snake. It was like this weird energy, and it like this force wants you to welcome it in like a vampire. It doesn't want to have anything to do with you if you don't consent to it, right? And then you look at like how the power structure of this world is. It takes our consent, because like that is like the lost sacred word is no. Because if you don't fucking want it, you can have that sacred power and be like, fuck no. That warrior, that being of being like, yeah, you want to do that? Well, guess what? We're gonna go, and it's not gonna be pretty, you know? So this thing, it was the force of the ultimate evil. And it ain't nothing like my perception of what evil was from that point before that point, I should say, was totally different from like, you know, you have these ideas of horror movies and, you know, demonic rituals, all this dark magic and all that stuff. This thing was like, this is like new technocratic, like Atlantean, like this is like back engineered Atlantean technology that John Dee was trying to summon entities to get the knowledge to what we have now.
Yeah, sometimes Amish were onto something with avoiding technology because they thought it was evil, and even though it's down to simple electricity, it's like they knew that this was coming.
Well, yeah, and we're conductors, right? So like what people don't realize is like this body is the true technology. And just the gift of having sound and being able to speak things into the ether and speak things into existence, like we're way more powerful than anybody can absolutely fathom, and the things that we're all capable of doing. And then you look at all these different shamanic, you know, people dancing with these certain vibrations and drum beats and breathing and doing all this stuff, like that you can project your consciousness into another realm, into another thing. And we all have that power to do that kind of shit. And these people at the top, these dark sorcerers, it's a dark priest class at the top that is just like, they own people's minds. They just own them. And they're hijacking it, right? Because they're hijacking our reality field, because they're making us create the world that they want through this technology, and people aren't even thinking anything of it because of how these things operate with the unseen world. And people aren't even like questioning that. They're like, oh yeah, it's just Wi-Fi and it's just this. It's like, it's not just that. It's fascinating, and it's how we work. So if you can think that we can do this with energy, we can do it with our consciousness.
100%. I really think that over time the technology is going to backfire on them, though. Like, I don't think they know with, like, when it comes to AI and all this shit. They're trying to use it as a tool for them to, you know, further their agenda. But let's be real, if they're dealing with demons too, and like ancient entities and intelligences, like they're dealing with something a lot smarter and a lot more manipulative than them, so they're getting played themselves.
I agree with you on the what did you say in the other interview that you were talking about, the deluge, you know, like, you know, this place, this planet, like creation only lets us, like us humans with like at a certain point, we have to evolve consciously, right? Because that's what all these, the Freemasons and all this stuff, it's all about being the best person possible and leveling up. And as we evolve spiritually, so does we bring the matter with us. So we're making the matter evolve with our consciousness. And I think that what this place and what creation has in mind is, well, you only have a certain time to do things, and this place gives you everything that you want, and we're either in harmony with it or we're not. And it only lets us be in disharmony for so long, and then it wants to eradicate whatever it is. So it's like, and I believe that these Satanists, these Luciferians, and these are all just like new terms for it. It's called the old religion. They don't even call it anything. They don't even have a name for it. They just rebrand it and give it out for these ideologies for these people to do, and so they can get people to do their work for them and inject these ideas into the subconscious mind of the human populace for them to create the world, because they need us to create it. They need to whisper these things into our ears for us to create this world in which they see fit, because they think that they're God. They don't like that God or creation has these laws of nature in order, and they can't break them. They can't do whatever they want. So I feel like they steer humanity into a destruction, because inevitably this place is going to reclaim itself and it's going to start over until consciousness can have another go, because the time, creation with time ain't shit. They're like, all right, cool, we'll just wipe it out and do it again. But then, these people, these dark priest class, they hold all the knowledge, and then they're like, okay, cool, the deluge was coming, and guess what? We're gonna take all this knowledge and we're gonna hold it, and when we reemerge from something, we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna tap into these different things. You said something about the Nephilim, about when they die, those are the demons. Those are the grimoires, right? These seals, like the Solomon seals, and the whole 72 demons of the Goetia, there's way more, but like there's theories that's the Nephilim. Those demons that died, they're stuck here, and they want to be in form again, so they can possess people. And you said you asked in one of your things about, do you think that drugs, do they have an influence on people of possession? And I 100% know that. Just being around my friends, like I had one of my friends recently, within the last couple years, get really into cocaine, and then he went down to smoking crack, got his wife involved with it, and then I started coming around and seeing all these pictures that their son was drawing, and they were all this like really dark shit, like dark stuff. And I'm like looking at all this stuff, and I kept sending pictures to my buddy. I'm like, hey man, you should ask your son about these, because this is fucked up. He's too young. I'm like, do you let him watch horror movies and stuff? He's like, no, I don't know where he's getting that. I'm like, so he was like, brushing it off. And then all of a sudden he has like a wake up moment where he's like, dude, you need to come over here, because this shit is everywhere. And I get over there, and there's these dark things everywhere. Because he, like, what he did was he set his son up on his iPad so that me and him could talk. So his son would be sending me pictures, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, at first I was like, oh, he likes Uncle Matt's drawings, because I draw a lot of monsters and he likes that. I'm like, okay, cool. But he was starting to draw like monsters eating babies and monsters ripping legs off and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, where is this coming from? And then when my buddy tells me to come over, check out his stuff, we go into the basement, and next thing you know, there's like mini altars set up. And whatever was coming through his son, was using his son. and they're like little talismans all over the house for this thing to take form, for this thing, and all this paranormal shit started happening in his house. And one thing leads to another. Then I find out that like I'm like, hey, let me ask you something. I'm like, are you using? And how much are you using? And I'm like, dude, I don't care if you are using. Like, I'm not gonna judge you for using, but you need to be honest with me because this has to do with what's going on. Just from what I read in the occult, just with what's going on, you know, it's all about your state of mind. And when you avoid something, you create a void within yourself for these things to come in and act through you. Turns out he was smoking a lot of crack at the house. His wife gets involved, and they're both doing it, and she gets totally possessed. I couldn't see her in the eyes. I was like, you are not in the driver's seat. You are not there. And I did that for a better half than a year and a half with him. And then his buddies that he was using with, they get involved with some kind of witch doctor from Ethiopia that starts. He's like, yeah, I paid this guy because I want this paranormal stuff to act. I'm like, wait a minute. What? What's going on? He's like, we got this witch doctor. I'm like, well, who did? And they're like, our one girlfriend, so-and-so, she got involved, and her master got her this witch doctor. And then I find out that this witch doctor sacrificed some dogs for certain things. And I'm like, whoa, okay, listen, dude, I need you to listen to me, because if they're sacrificing and they're using blood, that's black magic. You're fucking with shit that you shouldn't be. I'm like, did you consent to this? He was like, no. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's black magic. And this shit's, and he's like, yeah, shit got crazier in my house ever since they done it. I'm like, well, yeah, dude. So then one thing leads to another. Crazy shit still happens. And it got to the point where I told him, like, dude, I'm only going to be able to help you so much. And I'm telling him, like, you got to stop. You got to stop smoking. You got to stop doing this. You got to, like, clean up your mind. And you got to deal with that shit within yourself, man, because like he's highly psychic, and these things were using it against him. And these things were like, I mean, I'm talking about ghost shit. I'm talking about alien shit. I'm talking about spaceships coming around. Like I saw the footage. I was in his house when shit started going crazy. And I go, listen, this isn't just happening to you. You are creating this. This is happening because of you. I'm like, it's not anything else. It is happening because of you. And he would go back and forth with me. He's like, oh, I think it's not the crack. It's not this. I'm like, dude, you know what you sound like right now? You sound like an addict. And he's like, well, I'm going to have to disagree. I'm like, you can disagree with me all you want, man. But like shit got real. And then his wife ended up getting herself out of the situation, got the kids out of the house. She's all good. I don't know how he's doing right now, but yeah, that shit's 100% real, and I got to witness it firsthand. And the whole time that was going on, like I ended up getting involved with another dude that was a practicing ceremonial magician. And the whole theme of the last like 4 to 5 years for me was there's something that you need to see. That voice kept coming. There's something you need to see. You need to calm down, and there's something you need to see. And all the stuff that I was learning and resonating with all started coming to me because I needed to see firsthand and have firsthand experience of what, like, hey, what kind of magic do you want to fuck with? Because when you start fucking with like invocation and incantation and summoning things, you don't want to fuck with that shit, because that shit's real and it can fuck your world up. And I witnessed it. I watched it, and it's nuts. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And that's a big focus of what I do with my company is, since all this shit hit the fan, is I want to help people come back to themselves. I want people to go inward and be able to master their thoughts, emotions, and actions, and become one again, and really heal themselves. And I want to plant seeds. I don't want to tell people like, hey, this is what it is. And I don't want to tell, because if people don't want to hear it, people don't want to listen to people that are telling them. You want to plant seeds so people can be like, oh shit, I never thought about it that way. Oh shit, I listen to people all the time when they look at my art, and they blow my mind because they make me think about shit that I didn't even think about in my artwork. And I'm like, holy crap, that's awesome. You just taught me something. Those are my stories of paranormal and crazy shit. And I think the world's in for a big surprise.
I think you're doing a great job with that too, man. And to kind of sum up everything we were talking about, it's almost like the cliche of you got the little demon on one shoulder, you got the little angel on one shoulder, and you have to discern which one you're going to be listening to and which one you're going to follow. And you definitely dropped probably two of the craziest, intense stories that we've had so far on this podcast. And I think that's a good time to reel it in. Don't want to keep you too long, even though I know we could do this all night. This was a great episode. We'll definitely do it again. Every time you and I have talked, it's been an epic conversation. So anything you want to kind of plug here, your site, store, where people could get your shirts or merch or anything?
Your Instagram is freaking awesome, dude. Love it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I have a website that's under construction right now, but it's kind of a landing page. So if you just go to slapasscreations.com, that'll send you a link to my Instagram. My Instagram's at mattslap. I got a Facebook. Just type in Slapass Creations, or just go to the landing page, and I'll bring you to everything.
Thank you so much for doing this, brother. And we're back. All right, so that was Mr. Matt. Slap your mama in the face. That was good, dude. He got deep.
Yeah, two of the craziest stories dropped on this podcast yet, and that's saying a lot, considering the guests that we've had and the topics we've talked about. Definitely going to have them back. Let us know what you think about the episode. Let us know if you'd like to have Matt back. I know we do want him back, so we're going to have him back regardless, but give us your thoughts. As always, like, subscribe, share, give us that 5 stars.
Yes, follow on all the social media platforms, whether it is Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. Either Conspiracy and Chill or Two Truth Seekers, just depending on the platform you're on. Also Patreon, we're getting that up and rolling too. So yeah, big things coming. We've got a bunch of recorded episodes ready to come out and future ones coming up. So things are looking good. We thank all the listeners. We see all you guys out there, all the different countries. We appreciate every last one of you guys.
Stay away from the damn 5G towers.
And pedophiles.